Hi, Mark. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Good. Looking forward to this. Looking forward to chatting.
We've been really excited about this one, haven't we?
Yeah, we loved you on the sober session, so we're dead excited that you've taken more time for us.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Fellow
thank
fellow
you.
soberers. I don't know, what do we call ourselves? Fellow sobers?
Soberites.
Soberites. I know. I want a name that's like a good band name. Do you know what I mean? The Soberites.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
I want to be in that band.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I think I'm in it too somewhere. I don't know where.
We had one of our members saying the other day that she's, how far is she now?
I don't know what you're talking
Oh, she's probably about 50 days in, and she was
Right.
like, is it a cult? And I'm like, I promise it's not.
It's
Well,
a
I
bit
think-
of a cult.
I think it always, it's funny though, isn't it? Whenever you say to someone you don't drink, I mean, cult is never far from it, is it? I think it's partly because they think there's only AA, and obviously I've done AA, but I think part of it might be to do with the fact that, and you know, I think it's easy to think that you stop drinking, you get sober, and you're just blithely happy all the time.
Yeah.
It requires behind the scenes work, it requires attention and all of that, but the net result is there is a sort of tranquility even in our down times that you can sometimes around a dining table when other people are drinking, they look at you, they keep looking at you at the end of the table going, what's sort of like, what's with him? He seems all right. He sort of seems edgy about stuff. Do you know what I mean? And you can sort of see that. So I can see why people think we are in a cult.
There's
Yeah,
an air of
it's weird.
suspicion, isn't there? Like,
Yeah,
what do
yeah.
they know that we don't? Well,
Yeah.
we know that if you don't drink, you tend to feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
You know, when I
agree.
went to see my stepdad in Canada when I first stopped drinking, and he was gobsmacked like every single night, because he goes to the pub every single night. So when I was going out with him, he would say every night, I can't believe it, you're actually happy, aren't you? And I'm like,
Funny, isn't it?
yeah, he just couldn't believe that I could have conversations and be sober with people. So yeah.
We've had that flip side conversation actually with a member as well, though, that said, you know, like, am I meant to be happy all the time?
Yeah.
Because I don't feel happy. And I
Right.
think that we don't, because we're how we are and we're all about the positives in sobriety, sometimes we miss the fact that there are people who are genuinely struggling every single day just to have a positive mindset.
Yes. Yeah. I agree.
And
I mean, I think
Yeah.
no, I mean,
Good in there, Alex. Good in.
yeah. I mean, I think I spend I'm a genuine believer that a lot of people who turn to alcohol and most forms of sort of compulsive addictive behavior are doing it to escape this reality in some way, because this reality is either too painful, or it's too disappointing, or it's too challenging, or it's, you know, there's something about it that isn't enough, or we feel too outside of the normal. There's a sense, isn't it, that everyone else is normal and we're different. I mean, I love a phrase that was used when I was in rehab, which is, you know, the description of the addict can be, they feel like the biggest piece of shit at the center of the universe. And I like that, because it really sort of talks to the idea that you can feel ghastly, and yet it's all about, you know, you're assuming that the world and the universe is all about you. And I think what I like about you guys, and what I like about what other people are doing around, you know, sober groups and alternative ways of sort of being happy or satisfied or finding satisfaction in sobriety, is this idea that, you know, you can, I don't know, I do sometimes find myself wondering whether, am I just a very negative person? You know, am I a very down person, and am I doing something wrong in order to not feel better or seem happier, or, you know? So it's very easy for me, say, for example, to be very self-critical over the way in which I've stayed sober or maintained my sobriety, because most days I wake up feeling shit.
Yeah.
And most days I wake up feeling like I can't get through this, or how am I going to get through this? And you know, obviously there are strategies that one's found through various things. You know, there'll be a bit of AA, there'll be a bit of what this sponsor's done for me, or there'll be a bit of what I've read here, there'll be a bit of cognitive behavioral therapy here, you know, negative thinking, what have you. but I never sort of approach, I'm always beating myself up. And I was kind of curious to ask you guys about this, how you deal with this, because I always sort of beat myself up when I look, sometimes I can look in my tool bag and it's pretty shambolic, you know, it's like Nadia's, my wife's bag. It's like, I'm not going to be able to find anything in there that's the appropriate thing to find at the right time. And I sometimes feel that, you know, there's an inherent selfishness to feeling that one's so sort of important, even in feeling what one's feeling in the first place. Do you know what I mean? I'm sort of rambling a bit, but I suppose what I'm trying to say is that I do sometimes feel that I worry I over focus on stuff far too much. And the danger there in the outside world is that, you know, you just need to shake yourself out of it, or surely if you're sober and you're doing this, you must have strategies that work. I don't always have strategies. And I think sometimes it's really important to say that, you know, strategies fall fat, you know, they don't always work. They fail. You know, I struggle with them. And I sometimes see that people, when they hear that you're struggling, they suddenly they go, oh, all right, yeah, Jesus Christ, I don't have to be up. I don't have to be bouncy. I don't have to be, you know, Shangri-La. And it's funny because when I spoke to a friend of yours, Sober Dave, he said something. I can't remember. He was wanting to meet up for something. I said, but you're so. I said, I'm going to pull you down. I'm going to pull you down. I said, I'm so resolutely cup half empty, and you're so cup half full. And it was like, you know, it's not obviously neither one thing is what anyone is all the time. But I do, you know, I do worry about how good an alcoholic I am. Do you know what I mean?
I get it, actually, you know, like, and strategies evolve as well.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, it's a little bit different because, and you've pointed this out before, Lisa and I have been very best friends for 30 odd years. Yeah. And we are completely different in our outlook. We're completely different in our mindset. So Lisa is very much glass half full. You know what, Alex, you've got this going for you, that going for you, the other going for you. Yeah. Come on, pull yourself out of it. Whereas part of me is very much stuck in my past. And I battle with it. And I actually commented on one of your posts the other day because you said, I feel like shit every day, like you've just said.
Yeah.
It's a normal day. I feel like that every day. And I really battle most days with just getting a shower and getting dressed.
Yeah.
Now, I've not been diagnosed with depression, but I have been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, and it will get to a point where some days I will lie on my bed and I will cry, and you know, and again, I don't know whether I am qualified to sort of say this. I don't have suicidal thoughts, i.e. I don't dream of taking my life. I don't have any ideation. But I have pictured disappearing and not existing and thought, I wish I could disappear. So is that the same thing or is it not? I don't know. And at times I've phoned Lisa and said, I can't do this. I can't do it. I just can't do it. You know, I feel like drinking a bottle of red wine and going, fuck it, to the world. And she's gone, do you really though? And she's pulled me out. And I guess that's not really what people see, because what they see is Alex and Lisa like, hey, we're on a cloud, way.
Yeah.
You know what, Alex, though? I'm just thinking, like you said, that I don't wake up dead happy all the time. No. Like, I'm kind of a secret low person.
Yeah, you are.
You're a secret misery.
Yeah, I actually am. So I do. I come across, and I work really, really hard at being glass half full, and I am, and I work at it every single day. Like, I get up, I will do meditation, I do affirmations, I've got them written on my mirror. It's hard work being this happy, you know. It's not as easy as people think. And I think when I'm feeling really low, and there's times in my life where I have been on the floor, and I go very introverted at that time. I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to shout it, tell anybody how I'm feeling. I just want everybody to leave me alone. And I kind of have
everybody, isn't it?
Everybody. I don't want to speak to anybody. I'm just like, and you know, I'll get to be like, I'm like, Alex, I just don't want to speak to you.
She'll say, don't phone me. Don't
really?
And I mean, there's been times where I've phoned her and I can tell she's been crying and I can tell she's been down. Yeah. And she's just gone, please, can you not phone me? I'll phone you in a day or two. I will come out of this. They're not very often, but they're very dark.
Yeah, they are. And I think through my life, that is something we talk, like Alex said, about anxiety a lot on this
Yes.
podcast, and
Yes.
resonates with so many people, but we don't actually talk about depression very much. And I think for me, it's been, you know, in my teens, after I had my first child, I took antidepressants, and then again about 10 years later, I'd say. But I don't feel ever qualified enough to talk about it, because there's a difference in between being sad and being depressed. And what I love about you, Mark, is you're really open about depression. Did you know that you suffered with depression before you stopped drinking, or was it something that you realized after you stopped drinking?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, I think given that, you know, I started, who was it who asked me? Someone recently asked me, were you a depressed, I think it was my mother actually. I think she said to me, she said, were you a depressed or anxious child? Were you scared as a child? That was a question. I said, I wasn't. No, she asked it, were you anxious or depressed? Sorry. And I said, no, I was more scared than either of those things. Because as a child, you've got no comprehension of what an emotional state is it? You're busy being a kid. And so even in danger, unfortunately, as a kid, you can find great excitement. You know, I often think of like the kids during post-war Britain, they'd run around all the kind of wreckage and all that kind of stuff. So for me, it was a very chaotic childhood. It was a very restless childhood. It was a very odd childhood. It was very sort of unhinged. There was a lot of alcohol, a lot of drug taking, all that kind of stuff. But I was actually a very satisfied kid. I eked out my time. I was good. Then I started drinking, and I started drinking about the age of, 14, 15, and then it was just an arc upwards, wasn't it? Up until, however old I was, what was I, 30, 33, 34? And across that time, did I know if I was depressed? Do you know what? I think I probably drank with such ferocity and fury, with ever-growing speed and intensity, because I did have a sense of what you were just saying, which is, I was slowly trying to kill myself. But I think when I think about it now, I think I was probably doing that from a much earlier age than I'd like to think.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't take many knocks, does it, when you're in your young adult life? So I had a child quite young at 23. I was in a relationship that really meant something to me. Drinking was a problem before that. So that was clearly there before. And I thought that the set dressing of life would mean that it would be fine. Got my partner. I was very lucky. I went straight into a very successful job from film school. We had a house. We had a baby. And then I screwed it all up. I was unfaithful through drink. It was, but all of my acts of sabotage were drink based. And I realized that whenever I was on my own, I was deeply distressed.
How I am.
Deeply distressed whenever I was on my own. Now, that's odd, isn't it? Because as a child, I was on my own an awful lot. But because you're a child, you're just getting on with it. And it would be a time of great creativity and play, and that's probably where I got my imagination from for scripts and all this kind of stuff. I'd be real, yeah, this is all good. But obviously somewhere that was being funneled into somewhere in myself where I felt very alone, very distant. I knew I was in an unsafe place. So as I got older, I did everything in my power, even when I was wrecking relationships, to always be with someone or have someone around me. Always. And so that, as much as the drinking, disallowed me from being able to face what I was feeling. So going back, I am coming around to your sort of question of when did I know? And it was only really and that's why I think it was only really when I got the diagnosis with Nadia, quite a way into sobriety as well, that it hit me almost more strongly than it did the alcoholism.
Yeah. It
was such a sort of, because it was both a eureka moment, but it was also a sort of capitulation. I just kind of like fell so flat, and I thought, fucking hell, I've been doing all of this incredibly, what was elaborate lying and drinking, and even in sobriety, struggling with this, struggling with that. I could be this, I could be that. I should be better at this. And actually, fundamentally, I just didn't want to be me, and I didn't want to be in me, and I didn't want to be on my own. And whenever I was on my own, I felt the thing you've just described. I just felt such a blanket of darkness and foreboding, And that's why I think, you know, the difficult thing about talking about depression is we were just talking about this actually earlier, me and Nadia, you know, a huge component, as we know, of depression is anxiety. They present in very similar, you know, ways. And so, you know, the feeling of foreboding and doom and gloom and dread and, you know, but a stomach churning dread, has obviously been there and was hardwired into me from a child. So I think it has been there all along. But I mean, the moment I found out that for sure, in a weird way, it was a eureka moment and a huge kind of punch. But I can't work out why that was a punch, because I suppose in one sense I thought, no, I'm an alcoholic. That's what I am. I didn't want to, it almost felt like it was encroaching upon something I understood about myself. And then I realized it was something more fundamental. And then a whole heap of other work had to be done, in a sense, somehow, on myself and negative thinking and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, if I, in answer to your question, in the rare little moments of solitude I've had throughout my grown-up life, all I did was try to do anything to fucking obliterate, excuse my language, obliterate, you know, any sense of being conscious of being on my own.
You know what, Mark? I'm really interested in this because I've got a very, very close family member that I see suffers from depression, and I really, really struggle to help them. And there isn't any help because of their age. They're too young for medical.
Right.
And it's really hard for family members, I think, and people around you. Like, how does it affect your family?
Yeah. Well, that's a tricky one, because listening to the two of you characterize yourself, you're a bit like me and Nadia. Nadia's my wife, in that she is an eternal optimist, but
we're like a married couple.
Yeah. But behind that optimism, I think she would say I mean, not that we necessarily, I don't believe in the whole sort of horoscope thing entirely, but we are two Scorpios. We are very dark in our sense of humor. We're very gallows humor. We're very drawn to, you know, only us could sort of understand how dark we'll take humor to. Between ourselves, other people would look at us and go, it's a bit freaky. You know, we talk about death all the time. We talk about in the most excruciating detail, you know. So in terms of how does it impact on the family? I mean, one of the most difficult things, I think, for my wife, Nads, is that she feels that she needs to be, I can see that she feels she needs to be ready and waiting and available to help when I'm going through, and it doesn't happen in episodes. I mean, again, these terms that people use are so sort of intimidating. I don't have episodes. It's like one fucking great big episode sometimes.
Coronation Street.
Yeah, exactly. What are we talking about here? 27 minutes with a commercial break? I don't know. You know, it's just an enormous it can be just one in fact, it's an epic episode, and within it you could argue there are moments of light. You know, I'm very silly. You've probably seen on my social media, I can be very silly, very fun, very you know, bipolar as well, you know, very up and very down. But for Nadia, I think there's this feeling of, she knows that I can hit really dark times, and she's often trying to cater for that. But I also know what's really difficult for her is that sometimes you know, where we rub up against each other badly is where I feel she's only understanding me in terms of my depression. You know, she'll only you know, she's perhaps only thinking, oh, well, this is a symptom of something that isn't about what he's actually feeling. And I think that's the problem for people who suffer with this, is what's a real emotion and what's a sort of generic emotion with a diagnosis attached to it. What is me? And what is this thing called depression?
Oh, I get that so much more than you realise. Like, my husband will say, you know, if I'm having a really like an opinion on something.
Yes.
And it comes out with emotion attached to it.
Yeah.
And I might say, oh no, I'm not happy about that. I don't want to do that. And he'll go, that's just your anxiety speaking. It's not my fucking anxiety. I don't want to do it.
Absolutely.
And I get it. I get that. Honestly, listening to you, I think you've just done a better job. Sorry, GP, if you're listening. I think you've diagnosed me better than my GP has.
Oh, right. Okay. There you go.
Here, honestly, I mean, sounds to me like my inner voice hearing you. I've actually got goosebumps. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God, that's me.
You know, we can't have anybody else on this podcast because she diagnoses herself every episode, right? So you're talking about episodes, and I'm like, we cannot bring anybody else on with any medical issues.
Yeah, no, I'll have those as well.
It's me.
But honestly, in all seriousness, when I'm hearing you speak about those like light moments, and I mean, you know, I have lots of happy days. I have lots of really positive outlooks and lots of ambition and things like that. But when I'm down, and the same with Lisa, you know, like she was saying, it's very hard for me to swim and crawl my way out of that place, and I heavily rely on other people. I hate, even now, I hate being alone. I've never been alone. I've gone in and out of relationships my entire adult life that are not suitable just because they've liked me more than I've liked them.
Sure. Yeah, same.
And that's given me a purpose and made me feel needed and wanted. They've always ended in disaster because they've not been real. I struggle with attaching myself emotionally to my children, even though I absolutely adore them, because I don't have any kind of experience of being nurtured in that way, so I don't know how to do it. So it's very, I mean, there's a lot of differences between our stories, but I'm like, I can get it. I get it.
The truth of that experience. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, you're right. I think she, you know, I mean, okay, so we've said it's one big epic episode of kind of, and I do sort of use those sort of terms that just feel like, but when I have those, you know, for example, it was about 2 weeks ago, I can have a particular day, and there's such strange days when you are so, I mean, it's, like you say, I mean, it's the classic, you know, it's the Stephen Fry-esque thing, isn't it? That you can't get up, and you hear those phrases, and it might not be that I can always get up, and I will always make sure I do my say workout for my mentals and all that, I do all the physical stuff. But it's such a darkness. It's like being dead. It's like I imagine being, you know, the living dead. It's like you are walking with zero compassion, emotion, and yet at the same time and it exudes from you. So, you know, going to the extended family, you know, my two youngest girls who live with us, Maddie and Kiki, you know, they know within a nanosecond, without even walking into a room, what my headspace is. And I feel a huge burden of, you know, responsibility obviously for that, because, you know, it's not like I don't ever sit there kind of, I will always use comedy to get myself out of it, but they know when it's fake comedy. They know when it's like just reaching for something to try and distract them from what I'm really feeling. And I think the most difficult thing as a parent and with extended family, when you have things like depression and anxiety, is, you know, when your children start to demonstrate the same feelings, you feel a huge guilty burden of responsibility, like, oh no. I mean, and I don't know if you get this too as an addict, you sort of think when you see your children, grown up children, overindulging, so like Izzy, you know, my eldest is 27, you're like, oh my god, this is me. This is me coming through. This is, and you only, interesting how we only look at the negative things that are coming through them as us.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you know what I mean?
I do this with my 21-year-old daughter, and I think we spoke about this
in the sessions.
And you know, I love her to bits, and
she's a really good girl.
She's so good, but I see that she does what I did. So, like, if she's sad or angry, or if she's broke up from a boyfriend, she's off out and she'll drink, and she's just me, and it's so like I don't even know what I'd say to her, because I don't know how I would have helped myself at that time without doing that. Do you know what I mean? That has come with experience and time, and you don't want to kind of stop drinking. It's not going to help you, because that's not going to help them.
But on the flip side, she sees that in you. She does see that you don't drink. She does see the way you've changed, and I think that is helping her.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think in a weird way, the example we set as sober parents is something that they will only ever turn to in later years. It's like, that's my hope with my eldest even. And I mean, okay, so she's 27, but later years than 27, because, you know, if I was to sit there, say with Maddie now, who's going to be 18 this Christmas, and say, yeah, no, drinking is the wrong route, she'd know that was a load of bullshit. I mean, you can't say to an 18-year-old drinking is not the route to go, because she knows you're bullshitting her, because it was your way. She knows it was your way. She knows you're a recovering alcoholic. She knows you did it. You know, so I often come from that place of, it's a risk of saying, alcohol did, I had a lot of fun on alcohol.
Yeah.
Alcohol did it for me. I think might have said it before, but just make sure it's not your best friend, make sure it's your acquaintance. And it's that thing of obviously you're going to have blowouts, and I can think of an occasion where that happened, and I went into a tailspin the first time I actually witnessed one of my children drunk. And Nadia had to kind of get me away from this. I was just like, oh my Christ, this is not part. And of course, how many times have we all done? I know it's so hard.
I'm not there yet.
Oh yeah, no, but it's so hard because of course you can't sit there and say to them, yeah, don't do it, because it's like, well, what do you mean? You did it.
No, I get that with everything. 3 teenagers, and you'll know. Yeah, I get that with absolutely everything. And I see, and Beth will say to me, she'll like, and I feel a bit bad about this, but because she's witnessed my drinking up until like I'm just over 2 years sober. So it's all she's ever known, which I've got to kind of get my head round sometimes. But she will say, I won't do what you did. I won't ever take my children to pubs or I know, but she doesn't say it in that way. She's like, when I'm a parent and when I'm settled down, I will probably go sober. And she's adamant about it, that she's and it's really, so that's kind of good to see. But this is interesting actually, Matt, because this is what I wanted to ask you. So Nadia still drinks. How do you, like, I left my husband when I got sober because he was still drinking a lot, and he was an alcoholic, an active alcoholic. Alex's husband kind of
stopped with me.
Yeah, he stopped with you, but
didn't need.
Oh wow,
that's need to. But he's drank once in a year.
Wow.
I'm really interested to know how that kind of works for you both. How do you feel when Nadia drinks? Do you look after her when she's got a hangover? Do you feel a bit more? How does it feel?
There's always smugness when she's got a hangover. The thing is that, I mean, Nadia herself has said that, if I hadn't stopped drinking, she knows she would sort of, although she wasn't necessarily, what is the definition of an alcoholic? I think everyone has alcoholic episodes or, periods of it. So I think she genuinely is grateful for the fact that just her alcohol consumption has massively reduced in her life. But she loves a good time. She loves to go out. She loves to have a drink. She loves to party. I mean, she's not an extravagant drinker in front of me, but that's not because I've kind of created a problem. It's just never been her thing to come home and like pour a glass of wine in front of the telly or anything like that. So she's very tolerant of me, but I think I'm very tolerant of her. So we have alcohol in the fridge. When we have friends around, I'll always pour the drinks for people. And as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't even mind if she got drunk. I mean, there's been several occasions when she's come home drunk. The difficulty sometimes comes around, sort of entirely making her understand how difficult it is for me wanting to go to social situations with her when I know she can drink to just get through the door, or because everyone's nervous, everyone's a bit shy. And I think she gets frustrated. I know she does. She gets frustrated that I'm not more confident or bolder in being able to join her, because she wants to be out with me, not because she actually wants to go and get drunk. She's like, I want to be with you. I like being out with you. I want to have that. And so, I recognize in myself that something I'd like to work hard at is having that sort of self-sustainability of self and worth walking out into these places. But I think it was you guys who said something to me that I keep using a lot, actually, which is perhaps they're just not the right people. And I think it's a really interesting point. And I shared that with Nadia, and she was like, well, yeah, that's a fair point. But, I suppose she's meaning just in those occasions where you always want a partner just to kind of come along and support you. I think I could try harder. I think there's more work I could do. But we have a very happy balance around current drinking. Like, for instance, today Nadia's got friends coming around. They're all going to be getting, sawaled, as we call it.
That's brilliant.
And yeah, exactly. It's a new verb. And so I know I'll be coming back later when I come back in, and she may be a bit tipsy, but hey, that doesn't really matter. I think the one thing I do miss, though, and I don't know if you feel this, is that even in a healthy relationship, a little bit of alcohol is a nice way to just soften the getting into each other's vibe a bit more. you know, and especially when you're anxious, when you're like me, who's very fucking always self-conscious of everything that's bloody going on. That's why I'm a director. I'm looking at everything as if I've got a camera going at it. You know, sometimes I can see Nadia wishes I was just a bit more at ease.
Chilled.
And I think that's the thing. If I look at my sobriety and everything, I just wish I could be more at ease.
I think
generally,
you know, like the occasion that I'm telling you about, or I told you about a second ago, where my husband had his first drink. It was just the weekend gone, actually, and he's not drank in 18 months, almost 18 months, like I haven't. But this has been a birthday party that's been coming up, and he has said forever, I will drink on that day. I won't drink after it, but I will drink on that day. And I really struggle with anything being dropped on me. Anything, you know. I'm spontaneous on my own terms, right?
Yeah, I'm a bit like that. Yeah.
So if I make a split decision, great, let's go along for the ride. But anyone else doesn't, I'm like, no. So it's been planned for months, which actually then had the opposite problem. It's also an issue with me where I overthink it and build it up to become this big, awful event. So I spent the last maybe 2 months thinking, oh, he's going to drink. Oh, he's going to drink. Oh, he's going to... He actually had 5 pints. He was absolutely fine.
Right.
There was no issue. There was nothing. It was the usual kind of, I enjoyed being with the people. We had some lovely conversations. Got to a point where I went to bed because I couldn't tolerate them spitting at me. But other than that, it was a great night.
Yeah.
And I think that partly, maybe if they're not your people, you don't go along. But also, if it's not your kind of social event, it's hard. I would never choose to do that. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to sit with drinking people because it makes me uncomfortable. Now, I know where that comes from, and it comes from my childhood, because most of the reason that I'm like I am comes from childhood trauma that was surrounded in alcohol. So actually, it's just helped me to realise that it's not about my drinking. That's not why I don't want people to drink in front of me. It's about their drinking. People drinking makes me feel unrest and frightened.
Well,
a lot of anxiety.
But as you're saying that, I'm wondering whether maybe the whole sad history of drinking and alcoholism, like socially, is humans forcing themselves to be with people they don't want to be with.
This is
in
what
a
I was
nutshell.
It is. We're forcing ourselves to to get on, because you know, I've been to sober events now, like loads of them. So I went quite early on in my sobriety, and I was so nervous, Mark. Like, my heart was pounding. It was just such a scary thing to do. And when I got there, I found that we had like a long table, and everybody had to, it was a bit like speed dating, but not. So you had to kind of swap and make conversation. So even that got me really nervous. But what I found was, with some people, the conversation just flowed so naturally, and it was lovely. We got on, we laughed, and it was like, wow. And then with other people, it was really awkward. And everybody was sober, and it made me just think, like, you don't like everybody just because they're sober. You're not just going to get on with people. But, like, some people are arseholes. Some people are lovely. Some people
are just not your people.
Some people.
It's a very simple thing you said, but it's really stuck with me and it's something I use with my daughters as well, which is, you know, we're not put on this planet to get on with everyone.
No.
You're not put on this planet to not get on with people, but why just keep insisting on forcing yourself to be with it? I mean, it you know, if I think back to, especially working in the media, and I think back to the amount of years I spent in Soho having beyond boring, stupid, self-indulgent, wanky conversations about all sorts of shit, thinking we were the be-all and end-all. I just, you know, what a load of old drivel. And really, I didn't want to be there. Fundamentally, I wanted to be, I mean, metaphorically, as a child, I wanted to be back at home creating my own stuff and doing my own stuff, which is why when I went into sobriety, I set up my own company. And it's funny, isn't it, how with sobriety, you don't talk about it on a bar stool so much. You think, you know, it's like what you're doing. You go off and you just do it. Just get on with it. Write a book. Do it. You know what I mean? It's kind of, it's, you know, it's a curious one, but I do think I sometimes look at society, and especially in lockdown, I mean, basically 2 lines of advice have come from the government in lockdown, which strikes me and our family as a family living with someone with alcohol, you know, as a recovering alcoholic. They've told us to spend money we don't have and can't afford, because everyone's suddenly, and drink.
Get pissed.
Matt, please don't, because I could go on about this for ages. I am in infuriated by the
outrageous.
alcohol. It's just ridiculous.
It's outrageous.
People
spend money you haven't got, get poorer, and get pissed. Is that
and when
really
you
get
addicted,
because there's articles coming out, I've become an alcoholic in lockdown, and this is something else that we say. Everybody who first sips alcohol has the potential to get to the other end of the spectrum, because it's not linear, it's not straightforward. If you start drinking, you can become addicted. There's no it's an addictive substance. You're not invincible to it.
It's a lottery. It's Russian roulette.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. You just said something quite interesting a second ago. Well, you've said lots of things.
Just one thing, Mark.
I'm pleased, though. I'm pleased I said one thing.
No. So you know what? It's gone. The moment's gone.
Don't worry. It was interesting. It's evaporated.
He does that all the time, and I've gone and done it because I thought, oh no, it's thrown me because I said to you, oh, you said one thing interesting.
No, she can't remember.
I was just thinking that, just going back to the things we were saying about living with mental health and depression and what have you. I mean, one of the things I would say that is very challenging for the family of someone who's an addict, depressive, anxiety, all the things that we are, or I am, is that, we do hoover up a lot of the attention, and we do hoover up a lot of the energy. I mean, it's why I kind of go to the opposite end of the spectrum in being overbearingly stupid and funny with the kids, is that I want to make life as entertaining as I possibly can for them too, and as kind of unprecious and as silly. But I recognize that it is a very, it can hoover up a space. But the problem with that is that even if I choose to try and be private with that, however private one tries to be, if you're in a family, you can't be private enough for it not to affect people. Because if, like, say, for example, you simply remove yourself from the house, or you're at work or whatever, they all still know and they're all still feeling it. Do you know what I mean? And it's very hard. It is very, so my heart goes out to, I am blessed, and I think a shout out has to be made for, all the families and partners and children of people struggling with anxiety and depression, because it really gobbles up energy. It gobbles up energy. It's like a black hole sometimes in the family. But at the same time, that Nadia is incredibly tolerant, and but we've been through lots of couples counselling. We've been through lots of when I was in rehab, one of the most critical parts of it were the family days, and I think there's a direct correlation between people or families or couples that survive, say, one half becoming sober, and the longevity of that relationship is directly attributable to whether those family days in rehab work. Your family needs to be able to say to you, you were this to me, you were horrible to me, you did, unless they feel they've had that free, safe space to say, you were all these things, though I know that's not all of you, you need to hear it. And I think that's the really important thing as a alkie.
That's interesting as well. I think about that with my ex-husband. When he stopped drinking, he couldn't hear that. He did not want to hear. And the children, he was a stepdad to the children, and they wanted to say, you hurt me, you did this, or you said this, and he literally was like, I don't want to hear it, I'm not like that anymore.
But that's why your breakdown was complicated, because it's not all about the fact that he didn't manage to abstain from alcohol or whatever. It's about the whole package, isn't it? He didn't come to terms with being
it was a wanker sober too.
There is that detail. Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, it might be all right now. He stopped drinking. Like, no, he's still really selfish. He's still like, and that's so. It's really, but he wasn't ready to hear any of that, and
probably to be, being within the spirit of kindness. Even if he is a wanker, that might be because in his own way he either hasn't got the language or the capacity to front it out. If I think about a lot of the men I've known in my life who, you just think, for God's sake, just let go and open up and just admit it. It's fear. A lot of it is fear of actually acknowledging your behaviour.
And it's a journey. It's a journey as well. So, like, somebody's realisation might happen right at the beginning of sobriety. Somebody else might take years to come to terms with it. I think it's another thing where everybody gets there at their own pace, and some people might never get there. Like, they might always be a wanker, but we do eventually get to a point of self-acceptance.
Doing it differently as well, I think. Like, we stopped drinking very differently. Like
Yeah.
I kind of did it focusing on all the positives of sobriety, whereas he did the 12-step program. And I'm not saying this, you know, but there was a huge difference in our beliefs about sobriety, really. So he kind of really wanted to hang on to all the stories and the bad things he did, and he would constantly go over them. And I know it's worked for loads of people, and I know you yourself did 12 steps, didn't you? But for me in particular, it was the being powerless. And because I see myself as so much different than that, I feel more powerful.
Right.
I've stopped drinking. So I get it, and I get what's behind the powerless. But I can't associate with that, because I just feel like it's such a brave, bold, amazing thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's a really important thing. And I think you've probably articulated what I haven't been able to about why I have struggled with AA over the years. You know, I mean, I will always have a fondness for it, because it was really there to help me out of rehab. It was kind of, my analogy with rehab is, it's like microwave recovery. You're put in the microwave, you get to a certain point, and then I landed in AA. I couldn't have walked into AA off the street. I tried, it failed. AA then just allowed me to, and I didn't particularly, although I can be a very social person, I did have sponsors and what have you, but I struggled with it. I struggled with my own crushing social anxiety in there. I just found it really hard to do all of this. And I'd share, but, you know, again, a bit like you, I'd be spontaneous if it's me being spontaneous and me share, but I couldn't do the thing of, you've got to share every week. I said, I can't do that. I'm not in the, no, this week I'm different. I can't just
I'm not spontaneous, Mark, today. I will do it when I'm spontaneous again.
Yeah, exactly. And but I do think what you just said is true, because I do think AA works from, in a weird way, a premise of accepting that you're kind of subjugated to this addiction all the time, aren't you? So you're, you know, I remember someone quite close to me saying, I don't want to go to these AA meetings anymore. I don't want to keep being told I've got an illness.
Yeah.
And even though, yes, of course, on a level like a mental health issue, it's an issue you have. It goes back to this thing I was saying earlier about with how Nadia deals with my depression. That's not all of me, you know, and I don't want that to be all of me. And so I found myself sort of, the last couple of meetings I ended up going to, I'd say to Nadia, she said, how was it? And I'd be like, well, it left me I needed a drink. First thing I wanted to do was just go and drown my sorrows. It was just so. And I do think that, and again, it's not to knock it, because I think it's a really useful call to action for people. Yeah. But I do think it generates a level of, you're right, the powerlessness. How about reviewing that as I've taken control and I've done something very powerful? I think that's quite inspiring.
Yeah. You know what, Mark? It's 16, is it coming up to 16 years for you?
It's 16 years this October. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is just amazing, but it makes me think, like, AA and you going to AA, say 16 years ago, it's never really changed, has it, in that time?
No, hasn't evolved.
Has, so maybe it just needs a bit of a revamp. Yeah, a bit of a revamp.
A reset. It needs a reset, and it needs a facelift, and it needs, I mean, I agree, and I think that's why I love what you guys are doing, and what you know, Sober Dave's doing, and you know, and it's all interrelated. I do think, and Nadia's been saying this for a while, the joy of, was it the joy of the book, the joy of
the unexpected joy.
No, I mean, it's funny because when that book first came into our lives, Nadia was reading it, and I think she was a guest on Loose Women. I was very sort of standoffish, not in a sort of judgy way, but I was just like, I was threatened by the upbeat positivity of it.
Yeah, I get it.
And again, you know, I was a little bit anxious about talking to you girls, not because I was thinking I haven't got anything to say, and it was lovely talking to you last time, but I was thinking, oh my God, I don't want to be, I can be such a misery. I don't want to be, or, you know, I'm always sort of, if you ask a question, I go off into this sort of thing of, and then it's a game, and I sort of can sometimes take the joy out of something.
I don't think you do.
Oh, well, okay. Well, that's encouraging.
I genuinely don't think you do. I think you offer a completely different perspective on it, which is massively important, because there are going to be 50% of our audience who don't feel upbeat and positive every single day. And and don't feel that life's worth living every single day.
Yeah,
And I don't think you do drag it down. I think you offer a different perspective on it. I don't personally don't find you negative or
maybe, but I mean, I think that's just in my life. I do see the humor in every. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like at the moment we're toying with writing a sitcom about setting a rehab because it's fucking hysterical.
It's funny.
No, it actually really is.
Yes. I mean, it's ridiculous. When I was thinking back to the day, there was a day I came downstairs when I was in the rehab centre, walked through reception, a car had crashed through the glass reception and was stuck out the front of the building. Right. I said to the woman on reception, which was broken, I said, well, who's that? She said, oh, that's the latest inmate. I said, what? She said, yeah, they drove through reception. There's something inherently, and if you can see the humour, and I think going back to what you were just saying, I think I do always, behind even feeling so desperately bleak about things, I do recognise that all of us collectively have made absolutely the right decision. It's like, I can feel as bleak, even in my darkest place. I always stress to Nadia that I'm not feeling like I'm running the risk of relapsing. You know, I do live comfortably knowing I won't relapse. That doesn't mean I'll necessarily stay in a great place and I can worry about my state of mind and how happy I am, or and all that, but I know I won't pick up a drink. I know I won't.
Like what you come across as to me, and an overthinker. So I think that often when you're in a dark place, if I'm right, please correct me if I'm wrong, because this is what I do. I'm in a dark place, and then I start to think why I'm in a dark place, and then I start to think, does everyone else feel like this? And before you know it, you've actually taken yourself down that rabbit hole because you're thinking about why you feel dark in the first place instead of just letting yourself feel bad.
Absolutely. That's why Nadia keeps saying, do bloody meditation, for God's sake.
She's got me on it, and I don't do much. I do like 5 minutes a morning. It's helping a bit. I think I asked you the other day actually on Instagram, but you get like a billion comments.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
I've tried tapping.
Oh no! I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, what do you mean tapping? As in I thought I had to get tap shoes.
Literally tapping. EFT. Is it EFT?
Oh,
EFT. Emotional freedom technique. And we've both been doing it with two ladies called Jules and Katie. And we've done a podcast with them actually, but we're due to do another one in a week.
Oh, okay.
They've changed our lives in one way or another, just through tapping these acupressure points.
Wow.
It's whether or not it's a physical distraction, I don't know. The science behind it says not. The science behind it says you're actually tapping these acupressure points and releasing.
Yeah. Right.
It's chemicals, isn't it? Releasing some forms of chemicals and neurotransmitters and neural signals.
Yeah.
And it does bring your heart rate down and reduce your anxiety. Have a look at that.
I will. Okay, well, I'll look at it.
Honestly, like last week I was tapping on not being on my phone during my children's bedtime because I need to be fully present. And I don't know whether it's, like I say, is it just because I've said it out loud and acted on it? Yeah. My phone hasn't been upstairs with me for over 2 weeks.
Wow, that's great.
I think it's me, honestly. I've never gone back into my childhood. It's something that I stay away from. I kind of push things down, get on with life. And I do. It's just like the way I am. And I've been tapping and I've gone really far back. Like there's been some real it's been like
it's emotional freedom.
Counsel, it is. It's counselling sessions for me, but it's helping me. Like you said with your children, I've sat down. I hate watching TV, films. They annoy me.
I can't sit still. That's why.
I know, and I just want to. I know what's going to happen. Let's just get to the end and move on. It's just the way I am. But my 14-year-old loves it, and she wants nothing more than me to sit down and watch a film with her. And I find it so difficult. I'm like, let's go for a walk. Really.
Yeah, it's very similar.
So tapping, I actually watched both Hunger Games. The first two Hunger Games. Yeah, I know.
Back to back.
Yeah, back to back.
Wow, that is quite an achievement.
Yeah, no, it really, really was.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah,
honestly, we rave about them.
That's what I like about your approach, you see. So, something as arbitrary, as tapping, what the hell is tapping? Things like, but I mean, imagine bringing that up in an AA meeting. Everyone would just make it, well, exactly, tap to get through this bloody misery fest. But I mean, that's where I got to with it. But I do like the way in which you know, it's about being flexible, isn't it? It's about bringing in new things. And I'm always a naysayer. You know, like Nadia has been trying so hard to get me into meditation and mindfulness and Zach Bush. I mean, I do my exercise, but I'm very blokey about that. It's like, unless I'm throwing huge weights around with Joe Wicks screaming in my ear, it's like, you know, no, it's not worth it. I need to be breaking my back. Otherwise, you know, but actually you're right. I mean, I do gardening as well. And I do find that, you know, finding those totally unrock and roll. That's what I love about us lunatic alkies. Is like there was a moment a couple of weeks back in lockdown where I was in the garden and I was attending to something. Maddie came in with a friend of hers, a bit of social distancing. That's my 18-year-old, 17-year-old. And her friend said, Jesus, your dad looks like he's the head of a sort of mafia, you know, like with gloves and like a sort of paintbrush painting a rose going, yes, just find what you need in the back gate. You know, I mean, you know, it's sort of like finding those things that, you know, once upon a time when you were a drinker, you'd have gone, what, gardening? Are you having an absolute fucking laugh? You know, anything, use everything, use anything that's available.
True. I gave all my plants a bath the other day, didn't I?
Do you know what we've started doing though? Speaking of tapping, is if we've got an issue with something or with each other, like before we're having a little chat about the situation with the masks in schools, and Lisa's going, and we'll be having a conversation about something that, like, you know, might have just created a little bit of not conflict, but difference of opinions. And
funny.
Right. Well, I think this.
I've got a feeling though, guys, I might do something quite funny about tapping with my mental marquee alter ego on my Instagram.
Do it. I'm going to send you the link to either Kids or Jewels, because I think you'd find it really interesting.
Okay, great.
But I also do something fun with it as well. Why not?
Yeah. No tapping. No, it's great.
Really appreciate it, wouldn't they?
Love it.
You know, you've reminded me of what I forgot I was going to say earlier. And I do know what it is, and I do think it's relevant. When you first stop drinking, and you do something that you did not believe you could ever think possible, you stop drinking. And do you not think that builds up so much resilience and power within yourself that's why you suddenly become this person that can do new things? Like you know, you were talking before about setting up your own business, doing the gardening, trying new things. Do you think that maybe has something to do with it, the fact that you've achieved the impossible?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's clarity of thought as well. You know, it's, I mean, and a really important, again, going back to this idea that you need to use many things to get there. It's like, you know, one of my girls is going through a very sort of low self-esteem point at the moment. And I use this sort of nice little maxim, which is just because your feelings aren't facts, and what you're feeling about yourself isn't the truth. You know, okay, you can all debate what the bloody truth is, but I was just stressing to her that your feelings about yourself are coming from your stinking head, and they're not facts. And I think, you know, if I think back to those things, you're right, the things that I'd done, which I talked about doing but hadn't done until I stopped drinking, it's about just, you know, the common theme is about parking those feelings or fears to the side. And I do like those acronyms, you know, fear, false evidence appearing real, you know, when people say they're fine, you know, false information nicely expressed, you know, and it's just, you know, I think it is a case of clearing your head, clearing visibility, and ignoring. I mean, I have to confess, I think most of the biggest decisions I've made, you've homed in on what my major problem is when I've not thought too much about it. Actually, if I overthink anything, I can think my way out of doing something. And then when I was drinking, that would lead to big drinking sessions because it was such dissatisfaction, wasn't it? It's like, oh fuck, I've got all this drive, but oh no, I'm not. And oh, let's put it all into this. Let's just go completely socially nuts. But yeah, I think you're right. I think, you know, stopping drinking does allow you to have clarity of thought, clarity of purpose. You know, you still need to be brave, and you still need to overcome those fears. But yeah, try and unthink. My advice to anyone would be just, you know, when they say first drink, was it first drink, second drink, or whatever that phrase is? First drink isn't enough, 2 drinks is too many, or whatever it is. My thing is first thought. Try not to have the second thought too often if you're making a new decision. You know.
I brought that down. Feelings are not facts.
Do you know
it's
what my old boss?
Be our next quote.
It's a good one, isn't it?
My old boss used to actually say it a little bit differently, and he would say, "Feelings are facts to the people that feel them." in other words, like you kind of create something in your own head as fact. But he used to say it, you know, they're not facts, but they are a fact to you.
You've made them real. You've made them real.
That took
Exactly.
loads
That's
to,
the one good thing I've gained from my old job, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, this is just,
you know what? I think we've covered a lot there.
Yeah, we have, haven't we? Bloody hell.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Oh, I have too. It's always lovely talking to you. Always lovely.
I thought that was I can't wait to put the episode out, which is in a week on Saturday.
A week on Saturday. Well, let me know, and I'll get everyone we know to have a listen. But no, I mean, I have to say, I mean, what I love about you guys is that sort of positivity. It's nice to have talked about that because, I think, it's important for people to feel positive. You've made me feel comfortable about feeling negative. But I think you're right. Negative and positive, even as descriptions, don't necessarily do any of it justice, do they? I mean, in both of you can be funny, even though you're feeling as, shit as you do. But, just I always come away with new ideas and new thoughts, which is so nice. So
we do as well, though, It's the same for us because you put things in our heads and I'm thinking, this is interesting.
Well, we'll have to do it again.
Feelings are not facts. So watch out for that one on our Instagram.
Well, we'll have to do it again. And at some point in the future, I mean, things are pretty busy and I know Nads is off to do something. I'll have a chat with Nadia. We should try and get her on as well, because I think you never get to hear from, it's really important. I don't like talking on her behalf, but I think, listening to someone talk about what it's like being married to someone in long-term sobriety. I
think that would be really interesting because we have listeners from both sides, and I think that would be
really good if she'll agree to come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll have a natter with her. Yeah,
we'd love that. We really would.
Well, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
And now you've excited all our guests, so she's not going to have a choice.
I'm hors d'oeuvre, and she can be the main meal.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you guys. Thanks
very much for your time. We absolutely appreciate it.
Oh, lovely. Just send us all the links and everything, yeah?
Definitely will do.
All right, guys. Lots of love. Bye. Bye.